Good evening, Canvas. It's me, Kieran. It's time. It's goddamn time to talk about Gunter Grass's Tin Drum, also known as the Black Trouble. First published in 1959 and then translated to English at some point, and makes up the first of the Danzig trilogy. But can we talk about something? How did the German Die Blechtrommel end up in a free library around the corner from my house? I'm not entirely sure, but you know what's really creepy? Let me tell you this. It had a note in it. Here you go, and it reads, "Hi, yes, here I am again. Vakek, please be careful of your foot, if not both feet." That's just absolutely wild. But nevertheless, here we're going to follow the story of Oscar. I say follow, that's not really the case. We're going to hear the recounting of Oscar's life from the man himself, from his moment of birth to why he's ended up in an insane asylum. Grass is showing from the off that Oscar is going to be pushing boundaries. We're going to be crossing, we're going to be transgressing boundaries, and boundaries being pressed upon happens throughout this novel. As we start in the free city of Danzig, where both Poland and Germany are exerting their power, and how that is going to change through the rise of Nazism during World War II and the post-war. Everything is going to change, apart from Oscar himself, because at the ripe old age of 3, he has decided he's just not going to grow anymore. He will be a kid in stature for the rest of his life. However, his mental and physical capacity is that of an adult. Now, most folk would be right to question that it would be quite noticeable if a adult had not surpassed the height and looks of a 3-year-old. But that's not what Oscar is known for. During his moment of deciding he's not going to grow, he also gets a superpower, and that is every time he shrieks, he can break glass. He also carries around a toy tin drum that is beloved to him, and every time he breaks it, he'll just buy a new one and replace it. Every time Oscar interacts with the Black Trommel, he is in fact dancing to the beat of his own drum. He wants to have authority over all internal and external pressures that are affecting Germany. With the rise and the subsequent fall of Nazism, there are definitely a lot of borders that are going to be crossed in terms of nationality, definitely in terms of identity, and whose allegiance you are going to follow. Once those ideas become solidified to the people during World War II, once the aftermath of the war kicks in, questions around identity and nationality is not one for camaraderie, it's one for pondering. And you don't need to be an expert in Second World War to understand why tensions between people would become fractured. So where does Oscar fit into this all? Well, really, he doesn't fit into any of this. Oscar's autonomy and authority over himself really at times ostracizes himself from society, but then somehow transgresses himself to where the society wants to be. And there's no doubt by going to the beat of his own drum, Oscar will become embroiled within the jazz scene. Now, these themes within Gunter Grass's novel might seem reminiscent, and if you've watched me, you know that one of my favourite authors is Salman Rushdie. Indeed, Rushdie has said that Gunter Grass's Tin Drum has inspired possibly his magnum opus, Midnight Children. How Grass himself explores fractured borders within wartime Germany is definitely reminiscent of the fractured borders caused by partition during India's independence. And how Rushdie and Grass are using magical realism in order to heighten those emotions, in order to show how these transgressions really take a grip of a people's identity. One of the gripes of using magical realism within a story is that with the blurring of fiction and fact, it can make it quite a difficult read. I don't think Gunter Grass, in the way that this is written and the way that it has been translated, helps, because as I've said, we're hearing the recounting of Oscar's life from himself while he's in an insane asylum. We jump around all the time. There is a Baroque, almost Victorian lexicon being used sporadically. The movement from one style of writing to another, so you can flit from stream of consciousness to internal monologue almost seamlessly, is quite jarring. On top of that complexity, this is a war novel, and we go into some dark territory here. What makes this different is that the protagonist is really a 3-year-old boy. And if that makes you want to suck your teeth, We also have full-blown sex scenes. I hope you can gather from this review that the Tin Drum definitely asks a lot of questions, but refuses to give any answers. And you will be pondering if Oscar is telling the truth throughout all of this, even at the climax of this story that answers why he's in the insane asylum. You can't help but wonder, but is that really true? But what is Oscar to do? This is his life and he can tell it how he wants. The place that he was born no longer exists, and the country he grew up in looks very different with every passing decade. It seems as though he can only do one thing, and that's march to the beat of his own drum. This isn't an easy book to read, but similar to Bulgakov, there are so many scenes here that are vivid in my head and told expertly that throughout all of this, you're just wondering what farce is being played to you. It's daringly slapstick, yet painfully poignant. It's a tricky one. I don't think I would reach to recommend this. I definitely recommend Midnight Children because it's an easier read overall. But I can respect what Gunter Grass is doing here. And for me, the Tin Drum gets a 6 out of 10.